somebody else has beaten you to it is not exciting. So it's not a matter of selfishness or anything like that. It's a matter of, you know, seeing the outcome into which you've made this massive personal and financial and human resources investment.
It's a very quick question. I don't know if I need the microphone. Should I worry about companies owning the copyright to genes?
Yeah, I think it's an unfortunate outcome. I mean, the focal point is this company called Myriad in Utah, which has the patent for a couple of breast cancer genes, and it slows down research. I think the general view of scientists is that it's very unfortunate. Whether the U.S. Supreme Court, that's right in something they're looking at right now, and I hope they rule against the company. So keep your fingers crossed, because it's not good for research, it's not good for medicine, it's not good for anybody. Yes.
Something else. You mentioned something which kind of stayed behind with me. I don't know what you said. Nothing, just stop it. If you have a genetic predisposition, that thing sort of is there with you, but at one point, later on in life, something triggers it, and it develops into the disease.
Yeah.
Is that controllable in any way?
Sure.
Do we know why?
Well, we're starting to understand. I mean, every common disease has a genetic predisposition to it. You know, your father had heart disease, you're more likely than the next guy to have heart disease, et cetera, et cetera. The challenge has been that until the Human Genome Project and identifying the genes and being able to study them in populations, comparing, you know, 50,000 people with hypertension to 50,000 people without hypertension, identifies the genes that contribute to the hypertension. But trying to figure out how those genes contribute to the hypertension, that's the work of the next several decades.
I see. So it's a field that kind of you live with a sort of concern.
It's very early days.
But you don't know what might trigger it. I mean, why will happen 25 years later or 50 years later?
That's correct. You know, in some of these diseases like macular degeneration that I discussed, the genetics have given some insight that it's probably unregulated inflammation is one of the major contributors. But for most of the genes that predispose, the predisposition isn't huge. It's like a 15 or 20% greater likelihood for you carry one version of a gene that you'll get the disease than somebody else. That's not much of a predisposition. So to try to figure out how that particular variant of a gene predisposes you, it's a pretty subtle problem. It's going to take a long time to solve. The way it's working out is that let's say you find 100 genes, and this is true of, let's say, hypertension or other common diseases, that are associated, certain variants of those genes are predispose you to hypertension. What you then try to do is say, okay, what are these 100 genes telling us biologically? Do they all fit into a pathway? Are they all related to inflammation? Are they all related to your ability to handle salt? Your ability to deal with stress? So it's the biological directions that we're getting from those studies that's going to be important over the next couple of decades.
So you feel you can control it somehow?
Well, then once you know where the biology is messed up, because we really don't understand what's going on in hypertension. We know a lot about it, we don't know the root causes of everyday hypertension. This kind of work over the next few decades will be very, very helpful.
I won't be around.
Well, but your children will be.
Apart from the advances in biology, is mathematics making any significant contributions in the way of studying complex systems?
Oh yeah, completely. This is an area that's out of my orbit of knowledge, but systems biology is completely dependent on elegant mathematics to understand how the genes interact with each other. Absolutely. And mathematical models are critical to analyzing the billions of bits of DNA that are being studied all the time. In fact, there's a worldwide deficiency of what we call computational biologists, which are computer people with a heavy mathematics orientation and statistical orientation who can deal with this data. If you're trained and you're smart in this area, you can get a fantastic job right out of your PhD. Paying hundreds of thousands a year. Yeah, seriously.
Have you done any studies related to food and genetics? I'm just thinking of one person, I think his name is Kuchikov, Switzerland, 1930, showed that over a certain percentage, like around 50% of cooked food versus raw food raised the white blood cell count. So I'm just wondering, have you noticed anything related to food impacting?
Yeah, the question is very interesting. So one of the fantastic things about DNA is that the ability to sequence thousands of bits of DNA quickly has been that really imaginative people are doing things like going into the ocean and taking a liter of ocean water and saying, okay, what kind of DNA, in other words, what kind of organisms are here that we don't recognize? Well, you know what? Most of them, we don't recognize them. Taking a bit of dirt and looking at the DNA in it has revealed worlds of biology that we didn't know existed. So looking at the human intestine and the microbiome of our mouths and skin is revealing that we're populated by organisms we had no idea they existed on us or they existed at all. And so there's very much a disease relevance to this. In fact, I was just reading an article in the New England Journal of Medicine where it's been found that children with protein starvation have very different gut bacteria from normal people. And if you change their gut bacteria back to normal, that helps contribute greatly to the recovery from the protein malnutrition. So there's an increasing number of recognition of the gut biology is really important for health and disease. And so, you know, the guys who sell probiotic yogurt, they're onto something. Whether those bugs are actually good for you or not is a different issue. But this is going to become an increasingly important part of medicine, actually, but based on you know, really solid information. It's fantastically interesting.
Okay.